All right, then we'll get on to today's business. It's my pleasure to reintroduce to you Mrs. Aileen Schweitzer, who is our reference librarian, but more importantly and more significantly a member of the Honors Council, one of the people who is sponsoring you on this campus. And by popular request in here, she is going to address some of the topics you have asked for concerning research. I did get cards and letters from some of you about topics you wanted her to address, and her planning was for that, as well as some general information. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Schweitzer.
Mr. Bruno has told me that you've done a good deal of work already on your project. You've been busy gathering information and doing research. And now you're interested in exploring resources and information outside what we have here at Thomas Nelson. So I'd like to spend the majority of the time discussing resources beyond what we have available here. And I'll also take some time to address the questions that you might have for me regarding your research here. And I'll also spend some time discussing the questions that were given to me before class about specific honors projects. Be sure to interrupt me at any time if you have a question about what I'm discussing or if what I'm saying isn't quite clear. I'm here to help you, so don't be shy about interrupting or sharing the problem that you're having. I'm sure we all can learn from it. Before I get started, I want to make sure that we're all working from the same level of information and abilities. So I'm going to make some assumptions and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming that you've all done library skills for your English classes, so you have some familiarity with the library tools and resources. I'm assuming that you have familiarity with using the card catalog and the periodical indexes. You feel comfortable using these tools and don't have any problems with them. I'm also assuming that you have an awareness of both specialized and generalized information tools. Of course, the Encyclopedia Britannica is a good example of a general reference tool. The Encyclopedia of Psychology would be an example of a specialized information tool. And of course, I'm assuming that you've done your background research so that you're familiar with subject terminology in your area. You're familiar with research that's been going on in your field and have some awareness of the current situation and development in your field. I'd like to briefly review some sources in the Thomas Nelson Library which might be unfamiliar to you, but which would be very helpful. And then we'll go on to talk about resources outside the college library. The first information source, which is very useful, but many people aren't aware of it, is called the Monthly Catalog of U.S. Government Publications. And you can come up and look at any of these tools after class if you want to. Of course, come use them in the library. As you're probably well aware, the U.S. government is the largest publisher in the world. It seems as if there is nothing that the government is interested in, whether it's drug use among teenagers or how to own and operate a Christmas tree farm. The government seems to print reports on everything. I believe we have a class member here who would like As I was saying, the Monthly Catalog of U.S. Government Publications is a very good resource to use because you can access information by author, issuing agency, title of the report, keywords in the report. So even if you're not sure of an exact title, if you just remember certain key words from that title, you can still find it indexed. You can access material by subject or even document number. So this is one of the best indexes available. At Thomas Nelson, we purchase documents selectively. We only buy those that we think will be useful for our immediate use. Other libraries throughout the United States are called government depositories. If they're a full depository, that means they get everything published, and you can imagine that the major libraries and universities are the only ones with the facilities to house that mass of material. William and Mary is a depository library, and they have a separate documents collection. Usually the libraries that have separate documents collections don't list them in the card catalog, so you would either have to know how to use the monthly catalog yourself or get one of the librarians to help you use it. They have a separate filing system and a separate numbering system for documents. Also, if you wish, most of these documents can be purchased. And of course, we can also get some of them on Interlibrary Loan. Another useful source for up-to-date information, which is fairly comprehensive, are the newspaper indexes. Now, you've probably had to use this for your library skills, and most of you have probably used it for your own information. The ones that we have here in the library are the New York Times Index and the Wall Street Journal Index. Local newspapers have their own indexes. The Daily Press and Times Herald, for instance, has their index on a computer at their headquarters on Warwick Boulevard. They do allow the public to come in and use it, and it's not available commercially. So if you wanted to use that index, you would have to go down there. There's a service called Newsbank, which indexes major newspapers of the entire 50 United States. We do not have it yet at Thomas Nelson, but Christopher Newport has it. Most other libraries do. And that's also a useful tool if you want to access the newspapers. Most of you have probably had some contact with abstracting services. Sociological abstracts is one that we have here in the library. We also have psychological abstracts. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of these in specialized fields. The abstracts are good, as you know, because they give a synopsis of the full document or full report, and that way you can determine if you want to obtain the full document or report through interlibrary loan or some other means. This saves you the time of trying to select information just on the basis of titles. Sometimes, you know, titles are not descriptive. Sometimes they appear to be significant, and then when you get the full document, you find out that it's really very disappointing. So abstracts do you have a question, Marlene?
When the planes are going over rather loud, it knocks out the microphone, and I won't be able to hear a thing you're saying.
Okay. All right.
Welcome to the age of technology.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what can we do?
Just restate a sentence over.
Okay. Backtrack. Oh, as I was saying, sometimes titles are not descriptive. Sometimes they're misleading. And if you select a document on the basis of title alone, sometimes you'll be disappointed. So that's why abstracts are a very valuable service. Okay, one resource we don't want to overlook is people. Maybe they're not listed anywhere. Maybe you only hear about an expert by word of mouth, somebody you know. But people can save you time, they can give you shortcuts, they can give you hints and ideas that you can't find anywhere else. Well, how do you know the right people to ask? Well, as I said, maybe by asking local experts on campus. Maybe through the research that you've been doing, you see names listed over and over again. So How do you find out where these people are? It's a tricky thing to do sometimes. It's like detective work. If you know a person is working in a particular institution, a university or college, we have the college catalogs on microfiche, and practically all of them do list their faculty, and then it's a simple matter to go to the educational directories, get addresses and phone numbers that way. Most professional organizations have directories. We have a directory of professional educators, American men and women of science, who's who in America, that type of thing. So it is possible to get hold of the experts in your field, but it might take a little more digging than ordinary. Another way to find out what people are working in a field is through the Encyclopedia of Associations. This is one of my favorite reference tools because excuse me, it's fun to use, it's got a wealth of information, and it gives you lots of details. For instance, Linda asked me if the library had any gay publications. Well, we don't subscribe to any, but we do get one magazine called Our Own, just donated free. That's the only one we have. Well, I tried to find out who else could possibly help her, and it was rather difficult because in some of the major sources they just don't even acknowledge homosexual publications at all. So then I went to the Encyclopedia of Associations and looked up homosexuality, and it lists several pages of groups that are working for homosexual rights, homosexual information, and so on. And it lists the addresses, phone numbers, and people working in this organization. It also tells you what publications they have and so forth. So this is a really excellent information source for a lot of things. Encyclopedia of Associations. Those of you who are going to be doing audiovisual presentations, videotapes, or some other type of audiovisual format to accompany your honors projects will probably want to know what audiovisual resources have already been produced, what's commercially available. How do you find that out? Well, there are a couple of ways you can do that. One resource we have here in the library is published by the Library of Congress. It's called simply Audiovisual Materials. What it does is in reduced format prints cards of all the audiovisual materials that the Library of Congress has cataloged or has had sent to them by other libraries or commercial vendors. This is in title format, and it lists the producer, the writers, all the different people who have worked on a production. It tells you in what format it is, the production date, and also will give you a summary of the contents, which can be useful. And then in the back of these books is a subject list, so you can access it that way also. For instance, one of your groups is working on adolescent girls' fitness and nutrition, I believe, and I looked up fitness in the subject section of this one. This is the 82, and it lists both a video tape, film strips, and slides for a production called Dynamics of Fitness. Tells you the intended audience is for senior high through college students, and gives you a synopsis of what's included in this format. So this is a useful thing to finding out what's been done in the field of audiovisual productions. Another one we have, which is very comprehensive, is called the NISN Index. They not only have this for videotapes, but they do it for all the audiovisual formats. And let me tell you what NISN stands for. I can't remember this unless I have it written down. National Information Center for Educational Media. And this also allows you to access it through vendor, title, and subject. So it's very useful. I'm saving the best for the last. Unfortunately, this is not a tool that we have yet here on campus, but we hope within the next year. And these are online bibliographic databases. In other words, computer access to the world's libraries. It's an outstanding, really a revolutionary movement in the field of information services. In December, the reference staff here will be going for training. And as I said, within the next year, we hope to have computer online databases here in the library. If you're not familiar with this development, what it does is allows you, the user, through a computer terminal, to do searching on literally millions of documents, articles, reports, whatever form the information happens to be in. And the way you do this is by subscribing, usually not you individually, but the library or the company or whatever. Usually they subscribe to a database service. And then through that database, you are given access to these information sources. The one that I'm going to talk about today is called Dialogue. And the reason I picked that one is it's the most widely used and it's fairly typical of all the other databases. And that will be the one that we're going to get here at Thomas Nelson. And they also have this at Christopher Newport, William & Mary, and ODU. Dialogue accesses approximately 200 databases. This includes everything from the patent index, the electronic yellow pages, MEDLINE, which is the national medical database, the full text of the United Press International Wire Service, full text of the Washington Post, and these are just a few samples of what it includes. It's just fantastic. The way you use these services is by sitting down to the computer terminal. You've decided your search strategy ahead of time. You've decided which database you want to access ahead of time. And then you punch into the computer your search parameters. For instance, if I wanted to search adolescent girl nutrition and fitness, then I would punch those terms in or key in those terms. And if I was only interested in English language dissertations that had been written since 1980, then I could also put in those qualifiers. So you can make your search very narrow if you want to screen out a lot of superfluous information. And then on your screen would appear bibliographic citations for all the information that fit those parameters. And then if you want abstracts of that material, you can also indicate to the computer that you want abstracts. And then from those abstracts, you can choose to either order the material on Interlibrary Loan, or some of the services offer full text document delivery, but for a price. So it's good to have the abstracts for you to help screen out your information ahead of time. The policy for using these databases varies from library to library, and you would want to check with the libraries ahead of time. Usually there is a fee for searching. Some of them charge a flat rate. Some of them charge a fee according to the database that you're using. Some are very expensive to use, relatively cheap. So if you're interested in doing an online search at Christopher Newport or wherever, be sure to find out all the details ahead of time so you won't have any expensive surprises waiting for you. But it is a really fantastic information resource, and it's going to be great when we get it here at the college. As just a little highlight of some of the full-text documents that are available on Dialogue. They have the Academic American Encyclopedia, the full text online. Harvard Business Review is another one, full text online. Arthur D. Little, that's a marketing research company. Very good if you're interested in advertising, product development, and so on. Another one of mine. There are several others, but I won't go into all that detail now. It's really exciting. Okay, those are just the highlights of some of the resource indexing materials that you can use here at the library. Now, assuming that you've located your material, you know what you want to get a hold of, how do you get a hold of it? It's out there waiting to be used. How do you get your hands on it? Well, here at the library we have various finding tools. The primary one that we use for locating material in Virginia is called Cavalier. And I have to check to see what that stands for. It stands for Catalog of Virginia Library Resources, but we just call it Cavalier. What this is a microfiche file of the collection holdings of various Virginia libraries. It's just a reduced format of bibliographic information, author, title, subject arrangement, and then with each citation is a list of the libraries in Virginia that hold this book or periodical or whatever it is. And we use this a great deal for interlibrary loans. You probably won't have to use this yourself, but if we get too many of you coming in at once, then we might just tell you to go ahead and look it up on Cavalier. It's very easy to use. This is our primary tool for finding material in Virginia. The Tidewater Consortium Union List of Serials is one way of finding out what libraries hold different periodicals and serials in this area. This was a consortium project started about a year or two ago. Before this, we really didn't have anything for the consortium libraries to know who was holding what as far as periodicals were concerned. So this is very useful. The Thomas Nelson Library subscribes to approximately 600 periodicals, which sounds like a lot, but we're considered a small library. That is nothing compared to what a library like ODU or William & Mary has. So obviously we can't subscribe to everything. So this is a way of sharing resources, spreading the taxpayer's dollar out. And so if you're requesting an interlibrary loan for a publication that we don't have, we'll try to locate it this way. Did you have questions? Is the Tidewater Consortium Union List of Serials.
Is there a fee on that service?
No. I'll be talking about interlibrary loans privileges a little bit later on, and we'll cover that. Okay, nationally, if we can't find the material here at our library, if we can't find it among the consortium members or in Virginia, then we have another source that we consult, and that's called the National Union Catalog. This happens to be the book format. For the current information, we have this on microfiche. What this does is just reproduce in a reduced format cards of the materials held at the Library of Congress or cataloging information sent in by other libraries, and it also tells who holds the material. As you're probably aware, the Library of Congress is the largest library in our country, but they don't have everything. So sometimes finding where the material is hid is a bit of a detective problem, but we will do our best to find it for you. the Library of Congress does allow you to go up and use their materials there, and we can also get materials from them on Interlibrary Loan, but it is very slow, so it is not our first choice. Okay. I'll go into interlibrary loan privileges now. First of all, let me say that usually our interlibrary loan privilege is reserved for faculty or staff, but we're extending it to you because we know you're doing serious research and you won't abuse the privilege. I would appreciate it if you didn't, how can I put this diplomatically? We don't extend this privilege to other students, so if you would not tell them that you have this privilege, we'd appreciate it. It's mainly a matter of resources because we have a small staff and limited financial resources. It's just something that unfortunately we can't offer to everyone. Interlibrary loan works by you initiating a request for material. If we can't find it here, then we go through various stages of searching to locate it as close to home as possible. That way you will get it a lot faster. Most interlibrary loan requests take anywhere from a week to a month to get in. And I know you're operating on a short time frame there. And that's why sometimes you'll want to go ahead and run to ODU or run to William & Mary if you've used this and know that they have the material that you need, rather than wait for interlibrary loan. In fact, most libraries will not send magazines or periodicals. They'll photocopy what you need, and oftentimes there is a fee involved for that. It's usually very nominal, but you might want to be aware of that. As members of the Tidewater Consortium, I don't know if you're aware or not that you do have borrowing privileges at other libraries in the area, and I'll pass this around. I just phoned up to find out what it would cost for you to borrow material from the local colleges and universities, because it varies quite a bit. For instance, at Hampton University, there's no fee, but you do have to have current registration. Whereas at ODU, it's $5 a semester. So it varies considerably. And you might just want to keep that handy. You look like you're thinking about something.
I'll tell you what it is.
Okay. Another resource which might be useful to you, if you can't find the material anywhere else and have your own transportation, are the special libraries in the area. This is an information source a lot of people aren't aware of. For instance, I already mentioned the Daily Press Library, which is very useful. And as you look at the list I'm handing out, you'll see some very interesting resources here. I did not go into great detail about the borrowing restrictions and hours and so on, because I have a list which I'll be glad to share with you that has all that information if you want to go to any of these places. But most of them are very happy to work with the public. They might not let you check out material, but they'll be glad to let you use it on the premises and help you any way they can. NASA has a fantastic library. They've always been very cordial and helpful to anyone we've referred to them. So you might want to take time to see if any of these sources would be useful to the research that you're doing. Before I go into the specific questions that were given to me, do any of you have questions, problems about what we've covered so far? Okay.
You might point out where the monthly catalog and the abstracts are housed.
Okay. I deliberately omitted that.
All right.
Because
We can erase
it
this
might
on the tape.
depend on whether we're rearranging the library at that time or not. Okay, the union catalogs and the monthly catalogs are kept in technical services. But just ask any of the librarians and we'd be glad to take you back here and let you use them. The Encyclopedia of Associations is in the reference section, and they're all shelved by call number. So if you want to come up and copy down the call number later on, that's fine, or just ask. I was trying to make it as simple as possible. Unless you want me to give you the call numbers now, I think we'll hold on that one. Okay? Oh, I see one source I omitted, and I didn't mean to do that. This is quite simply called Subject Collections, and what it does is index different special libraries and different special private collections of materials. For instance, the gentleman who's doing research on cartoons and comics, I was curious as to see whether there were any special collections dealing with that subject, and I was able to find several in here. This is useful because it includes not only professional libraries, but also private individuals and private foundations and so on that have specialized collections of any substance. So this is interesting to use and also useful. Okay, I'll go into the questions that were addressed about a couple of the honors projects. I covered most of Linda's questions already, so I'll go on to the next one. Okay. Mary had asked about finding up-to-date medical information, and as I mentioned when I was talking about dialogue servers or online databases, one of the databases that's available is called MEDLINE, and I'll just read to you what it includes and you'll see why it's so fantastic to use. Okay, MEDLINE is produced by the U.S. National Library of Medicine. It's one of the major sources for biomedical literature materials. It corresponds to 3 printed indexes: Index Medicus, Index to Dental Literature, and International Nursing Index. It has abstracts. It covers virtually every area in the broad field of biomedicine. And this is what's so fantastic. It includes indexing to articles from approximately 3,200 journals published in over 70 countries. So if you want to do comprehensive searching, this is the place to go. Okay, and then I had another question about contacting people doing research at colleges. Did someone here give me that question? Okay. Were you trying to contact people that you already had the names of? Or, okay, and I think I mentioned a little bit of that using the college catalogs and some of the professional association directories to do that. Okay, do any of the rest of you have questions?
Well, if you don't have the names.
Okay, if you don't have the names, as we were discussing before, when you're doing your research, oftentimes a name will appear frequently and you'll know that person either has done a lot of writing in the field or is considered to have good information. Or you can use the Encyclopedia of Associations, access it through the subject approach. Also, depending on the field, American Men and Women of Science, you can access that through the subject approach too. What was your honors project going to be? Language. Okay. Well, come see us and we'll work with you on that one. Sometimes it requires some digging, but that's okay. It's a challenge. Yes?
Let's see, the nice one, I didn't get the full title?
Okay. Usually we just refer to it as nice. Hi, Barbara. Okay. The one that I happen to have is Index to Educational Videotapes. The name stands for National Information Center for Educational Media. And they have an index for videotapes, slides, sound recordings, etc. Very comprehensive. Yeah.
When you were talking about dialogue, you said there would probably be a fee for it?
Yes.
What, you have any idea, like what?
Okay. Usually they try to save you as much money as possible, and they will do what they call a reference interview ahead of time to make sure they know exactly what you want. And then they will select an appropriate database. For instance, ERIC, the educational database, is very cheap to search. And if you're only online a couple of minutes, which is quite likely, then it'll maybe cost you, $5 or $10. If you wanted to do research in chem abstracts, I think the fee for that is something like $100+ an hour. So the reference librarian that's helping you will make sure that you're aware of the fees ahead of time. Usually they can do their search very quickly, and it won't cost you very much money. I mean, under $20. But when you consider that it's going to save you time of searching indexes one after another, it's really a savings.
How do you register for the consortium libraries?
All you have to do is have a current student ID and then go to the circulation desk of whatever library you're interested in, and they'll have you fill out a registration card just like we do here.
Did you register for them here?
No, it has to be at that individual library. It would be nice if we could have a consortium-wide library card. That would be good for all of the libraries, but that's not something that they've agreed upon yet, I guess.
Should we get your recommendation before we go to the special libraries in your area? Because he said that they are nice to the people that he recommends going to.
It might not be a bad idea. For instance, maybe no one is there that day, or maybe they don't have the information that you need. It might save you some grief if you let us phone ahead. Not to screen you out, but just to make sure that they're going to be able to help you. Okay, did you have a question?
Would any one of these catalogs, in particular, have a lot of reference as to government statistics and things like that? I have a lot of statistics that I got out of different books. A lot of them put out by like the Human Health and Human Services and SSA, Social Security Administration, but I can't find any. All I can find is what's already written into an article or something like that.
Okay, we have one source called Statistical Abstracts, which is our standard reference source for statistical information. But I will warn you that statistics are sometimes difficult to find. One of the reasons is there's often a time lag between
Publications?
Yeah. For instance, some of the most recent census information is just now being published, and that's years later.
Yeah, because I read a lot of stuff in there saying like whether or not, we have this information up until so-and-so, and the next book is not, it's upcoming, the 84 edition, yet, the inside might say 84, something like that. It's 20 years back.
Right. I definitely know what you're talking about. Statistics are one thing that are very difficult to get current information on. Okay.
This might sound kind of funny. Could a person with a home computer have any way of access to libraries here?
Not on this peninsula, not that I'm aware of. I'm trying to think of the libraries in the area that are completely automated. And I can't think of any, to tell you the truth. Most of us are in different stages of automation. For instance, Old Dominion has a completely automated circulation system. And I believe the students and staff there can access their own catalog all throughout the campus on different terminals that are in various parts of the campus. But other than that, I don't know of any other library in this area where you'd have that possibility. Someday, but not right now. I will say there are places where that's possible, but at the moment, most libraries haven't reached that stage of development. It's very expensive. It takes years of work. Okay, well, it's been great talking to you. We're here to help you, so please don't hesitate to ask us for any help we can possibly give you. I wish you great success on your projects. I know you've been working hard, and we'll really be excited to hear the results. We're all invited to the public presentations, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. Do any of you want me to leave these here? Okay.
I'll be responsible for returning.
Okay, fine. I'll just leave them here, and then Mr. Bruno can bring them back after class.
I want to tell you this now. There is a parking problem at William and Mary. Do you experience that? You either get a ticket or you pay $12 every time you park, or you pay $12 for a day student sticker. So
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes.
Inside information, that's good to know.
Well, they don't make you pay the ticket. It's the annoying thing of paying it back.
Either that or you have to park far away and hike in. I've done that. I'm going to leave the dialogue catalog here that has descriptions of all the databases that are in it. It might be fun for you to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I don't know if it's falling apart.
Everyone
It
get
seriously
copies?
is. Thank you very much. You get the leftovers?
Michael, you finished with me?
Yes, thank you very much.
I know that I've got 6 grades, and my job is to read 6 grades, take the average of it, put it in a place called average, and then go back to the main program. All right, I'm going to say a constant here for number of grades is 6, because maybe next time there'll be 10 grades, or maybe the next time there'll be 3, and my program will work by changing one card. So I have a const number of grades is 6. I have a var section in which I set up storage for those variables that I'm going to use within my program. And when I say my program now, I have now become get average. I'm down at this level. I need a sum and a grade and a count. Remember, in the last one, we took an average, and we knew we needed a place to do a running sum, and we needed to keep track of how many we had added up together in order to make the average. In this case, I need that count to tell me when I've read enough. And I need grade is the place I'm going to read one grade into. And they're all going to be integer. So now, in my procedure, this is all my instructions to the translator. I have a begin and an end down here where I will put what I want to have executed. Need to set sum to 0. I need to set count to 0. Anytime you have a running sum, you must start it off at 0. When I have a count, I need to set it to 0, and I'm going to add 1 to it each time. Now, while count is less than the number of grades due, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to read a grade. I'm going to replace sum with the contents of sum plus grade. Count is going to be count plus 1, put back into count. Then I go back up here and test this again. Now, one thing I want to point out here is you notice that my test is count less than grade. I started off count at 0, and I know I've got 6 things that I'm going to read. So, if I start off with 0, and I have read the first one, that's first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, and I'm incrementing down here, I want to not do it when it's equal to 6. So I want to do it when count is 0, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. So my test here is count less than number of grades, not less than or equal. If I had started count off at 1, then it would need to be less than or equal. Now, I come down to here, I fall out of this situation. You notice that I've got a semicolon here, a semicolon here. I do not have a semicolon here because that's right before the end. I could have put one if I had wished. It would have been unnecessary. It is not wrong to do so. But remember, a semicolon says another sentence is coming, and is coming. That's the end of the whole while sentence. All right? Average is sum divided by the number of grades. Remember, div is divided by. Now I have to stop. Is number of grades what I want it to be? Is it not 7? It is indeed 6. If I had started out count at 1 and checked less than or equal, when I got to here, number of grades would have been 1 too many, and I would have had to divide by the number of grades minus 1. So anytime you're doing a count, you need to keep track of whether you're going to be 1 too few or 1 too less. Sometimes it helps just to count it on your fingers. That takes care of procedure that does the average. Now then, the procedure for get letter grade. We've done that one before. We know what the process is. We simply have to set it up as a procedure. Okay, let's look at it so that when we've got procedure, get let grade, I've got var num grade, integer, var let grade, char. Why am I using num grade up here instead of average? Because what I'm doing is assigning a letter grade on the basis of the average. Well, I have written this program once before, and when I wrote it, I used num grade as my identifier. I don't want to have to rewrite this. Look at all of that. By the time I key punch that in or do it in on the terminal, no telling how many mistakes I will make. However, I can simply take and use this directly because I am going to call this num grade. The main program is going to give me a value for a place called average. That's just fine. I'm going to call it num grade, and the main program can call it average, and I don't care. I'll call it what I want to. What's important is that the value that I'm given is the correct one. All right? Var let grade is a character variable. It's a char variable. As it just happens, I'm using the same name here. And then I've got my begin and my end. And you'll notice that this is the first version of the top-down design that we did on assigning letter grades. And the question was asked then whether or not the first version or the second version was better. Remember, the first version assigned a grade to a variable. The second one simply printed it. Well, here is an example where that first version is what I want because it's a subprogram, it's a procedure, and I'm going to send back that letter grade as my answer. So, If num grade is greater than or equal to 90, then the letter grade is an A. Else, if num grade is greater than or equal to 80, then letter grade is a B, and so forth. And you have seen this, you have worked completely through it. So down at the bottom, else, it's an F, and this is a complete sub-program. When this end is reached, control goes back to the main program, and indeed, letter grade holds what it's supposed to hold. So let's look then at how these are all put together to form your main program. Okay, this is program 6, and the order of the way things fit together is that you have your program name, and you have your const section, and your var section, and your procedures, and each procedure has a const section, a var section, and a procedure section, and each procedure has, and so on indefinitely, until finally you finish all your procedures and you have your main program. You have the begin and the end that goes with that program on the top. Okay, let's look at it. We've got program 6, input, output. We have the var section on the main program, which was average, social security number and integer, letter grade, and char. Now these are the variables, the identifiers that the main program needs to know about. The others, such as grade and sum and count, the main program doesn't care about. It doesn't need to know about. Those are local to a particular procedure. Immediately following your var section, following that semicolon, following that char, on letter grade, I have the word procedure, and it's just like program. It's a keyword, and it's delineated with a blank following it, and I have a name. Just like we've named our programs, we now name our sub-programs, our procedures. And a parentheses, and instead of having input and output, which tells where things are coming from or going to, I have things passing back and forth between my main program and my sub-program. And what this var average integer says is that I have no idea what this value is going to be. That value, if it's an input to me, is going to be given to me. In this case, this is an output. I don't need to know anything from the main program to do what I'm going to do. But I do need a place to send an answer back to the main program, because the main program is simply saying to get average, you go do it. And I don't care how you do it, but give me back the answer. So the main program, when it calls this procedure, is giving it a place to send the answer back in. So that's what average here is for. And then I have my constant for number of grades, and I have my local variables, and I have my program. Now, if in the main program I used sum or grade or count, it would say, sorry, don't know what you're talking about. Because the main program does not know what has been identified as a local variable on the var section of a procedure. Okay, we have following the end, and you know you have a procedure, and then the pseudo operations, the instructions to the translator, a begin, executable program, and end. Then I follow that with another procedure if I have one. In this case, I have get let grade, which has as input num grade. That's an input parameter to this procedure. In other words, I'm going to be given a grade to use in that slot, and I know it's going to be an integer value. I've got var let grade. That's the output. That's the answer back to the main program. Then I have my begin and my end associated with this procedure. And if I had other procedures, they would go in here. I do not. So I have the begin for my main program, and my main program, which was simply get average, get let grade, and then print and the reads and the control structure. And then I have my end statement down here. Now, I want to point out something that if you understand will make life easy for you. If you have problems with it, you're going to find that it's going to give you continuous problems as you go along. And that's the idea that you need to match up the names that are written on the procedure name card, parentheses, those variables, and then when it's being called, you give the name of the procedure, a parentheses, and some variable names. How these things are matched up are done in terms of position. Look. Procedure, get average, var, average, integer. That was how it was defined. When it was used, or executed, or called, it said get average, parentheses, average. Now, it just happens in this case that I have used average in both places. I'm calculating an average. It was the obvious identifier to choose for this particular variable. However, the fact that this place is sent over and used here, it makes no difference that they are the same name. What happens is, when get average is executed, it hands over to the procedure a cell that it's to use. It in effect says, here is the cell, use this cell. And the procedure says, thank you kindly, and goes off and uses it, calling it in the procedure average. The fact that they both call it the same thing is coincidence. It's the fact that this is passing over a place to use, and that is receiving a place to use. Down in the next one, it was procedure get let grade. I had var, num grade, integer, var, let grade, char. When it was called get let grade, average, comma, let grade. Now, it matches them up by position. Get, let, grade hands over two identifiers, two cell numbers to the procedure. And calling it here, this is how it knows what to hand over, which procedures to hand over. It's handing over average and let grade. This is receiving two, and it's calling them num grade and let grade. Purely coincidental that the things both call them let grade. The idea is this hands over a cell, and the first one it hands over is going to be called num grade in the procedure. The second one it hands over is going to be called let grade in the procedure. And this positional lineup, if you understand it, how it operates, makes working with procedures much easier. Now then, let's summarize what we have said. And lest you be very panicky, because we've covered a lot of material today, let me say that the next two modules are going to go over this again. This is a very important concept. We're giving it to you today. Next time we'll tell you we gave it to you, and the next time we'll remind you that we did. So let's look at the words we have used. We have talked about procedures. They are sub-programs. They simply are mini programs, if you like, which you can put together to make a main program. And this makes your program look like your top-down design. All right? You define it, and you define it by using the word procedure, giving it a name, and then listing the information, either that must come from the main program or must go back to the main program. That's your communication box. And then the portions of it, you have the same portions you have of the main program, const, var, begin and end. When it's used, then you use it by giving the name of the procedure, parentheses, and the values to be used over here. So you match them up. You define it, write your procedure using these, you call it or execute it, giving it these names.